Let's get our text back in front of us. He cried, and still the world pursues jug, jug to dirty ears. God, those dirty ears always really get me. Here she is trying to put on all this makeup and be so attractive, and the dirty ears are mentioned, kind of soils the whole scene. And other withered stumps of time. Now, if you know the Philomel story, then those other withered stumps, why other? Talking about the withered stump of the tongue that was cut out of time, were told upon the walls. So this lady's room has pictures portraying sexual depravity. Staring forms leaning out, hushing the room enclosed. What wonderful music. We're told upon the wall. Staring forms leaning out, hushing the room enclosed. Footsteps shuffled on the stair. Now, if you don't know about Middleton's Women Beware Women, footsteps shuffled on the stair may just suggest to you that somebody's coming up to see her. Is it her husband, her lover, her daughter, her just she's in the middle of something and she has footsteps on the stair. But if you know about that play, the footsteps shuffling on the stair can be the villain rising up to the upper level to rape the young girl. What a horrifying picture he has drawn of a supposedly well put together lady who's lucky enough to own all these expensive things. It's sex gone bad. The second scene. Oh, and I'm sorry, it's not quite finished. Under the firelight, under the brush, her hair spread out in fiery points, glowed into words, then would be savagely still. My favorite part of the wasteland is usually the part of the wasteland I'm looking at right now, and these three lines will do it. There she is with the perfumes and the unguents and the liquids, and then under the firelight and under the brush, she's brushing her hair, and the hair is being reflecting the light from the firelight, and the brush is going through it. Her hair spread out in fiery points, glowed into words, then would be savagely still. Savagely still. Philomella's inability to speak because of that severed tongue. And here we have this luxurious, almost tactile moment of the brush spreading the hair out. They're fiery because the firelight is bouncing off them. They glowed into words. The hair became words. It has to do with her doing this tapestry, and then would be savagely still. No more to be said. The next scene. Now, when you see quotation marks at the beginning of the line, it means there's a character speaking. And if you don't see quotation marks at the end of the line, that character continues to speak. But you will see quotation marks at the beginning of the next line to indicate it's ongoing. So don't get confused into thinking that the second set of quotation marks is somebody else who's speaking to, in this case, her. This is her still speaking. And not until we get a closing set of quotation marks do we get the end of her speaking. So these 4 lines are all her, because you see the opening of the quotes at the beginning and no closing until the end of the 4th line. She is a very nervous person. And we have a real sense that this is a good copy of how Eliot's wife sounded. And why? Because Vivian Eliot wrote in the margin of that initial draft, which has all the Ezra Pound comments, very good imitation, something like that, suggesting, yeah, you caught us very well, especially me. So here is Vivian Eliot. My nerves are bad tonight. Yes, bad. Stay with me. Speak to me. Why do you never speak? Speak. What are you thinking of? What thinking? What? I never know what you were thinking. Think. This is 20th century music. There's no Beethoven or Schubert here. There's no Brahms here. There's no Wagner here. Let me read the lines again without the words. Just listen to the music. Didim padam padam. Beep bum. Beat bum. Beep padam. Bum bum. Beep. Beep. You can't dance to it. And Eliot and Vivian love to dance. It is a destruction of the rhythm through which he portrays for us the destruction of the nerves, the inability to find peace. 4 remarkable. What do you think of? What? I don't know what you think. And he answers. And we've got an I. We don't have an open of quotation marks again. So it's unclear at first who this is, but it says I, and he's responding to her suggestion that he should think. So this seems to be him. I never know what you were thinking. Think. I think we are in Rat's Alley, where the dead men lost their bones. Oh my goodness. Tell me, sweetheart, what you thinking of? Oh, I'm thinking about how we're in Rat's Alley where the dead men lost their bones. Oh, dear. Dead men. Fear death by water. Drowned Phoenician sailor. Circles of hell. Lost their bones. Those are pearls that were his eyes. Lost their bones. Their bones got lost in an alley. And the alley belongs to the rats. And we're going to have more rats in the poem too. If she's neurotic, he's depressed. This is quite a couple. Here we have Love in the Wasteland, Chapter 2. Look at the ways in which they don't get along. What is that noise? She says. He responds, the wind under the door. What is that noise now? What is the wind doing? Nothing. Again, nothing. Do you know nothing? Do you see nothing? Do you remember nothing? Now, once again, we have this rhythm that is so fragmented, so shattered, that it sings for us the shattered quality of these nerves. Now, we've had a lot of Wagner, we've had a lot of Shakespeare already. All the critics I've read of this, writing about this passage, none of them find either Wagner or Shakespeare. So this is, you heard it here first, folks. I find Wagner and Shakespeare here. Now, you don't have to find them in order for this to be a remarkable poetic setting with rhythm used like rhythm had never been used before in English poetry. This is totally new thing. But if my connections to Shakespeare and to Wagner here, they certainly function for me. If they actually were meant by Eliot to function, I don't care if he meant it or not, because they're there. Let me explain it to you. The Shakespeare's easier. You know nothing, you see nothing, you remember nothing. You recall in an earlier hour that we spent on the wasteland, I talked about the word nothing and how important it is in Shakespeare and how it so often means something. We looked at examples from King Lear and from The Winter's Tale. I hear that nothing being slammed here in the same way. So although she's just a neurotic person at the beginning of the 20th century, Shakespeare is as if Shakespeare were writing about it around her. So we have Shakespeare brought into the moment. And Wagner, where's Wagner? What is that noise? The wind under the door. In the second opera of Wagner's Ring, Die Walküre, opening scene, Siegmund comes in, he's wounded, he's been fighting people at a wedding, trying to save the woman she didn't want to be married, and he killed a bunch of the wedding party, but they wounded him, and he's wandered through the forest, and he finally comes to this house, and he knocks on the door, and he says, I need a drink of water bad. And who's on the other side of the door? Sieglinde, his long-lost twin sister. And she invites him in. Eventually, Sieglinde's husband comes home, Hunding. He was one of the wedding guests. And he says to Siegmund, look, laws of hospitality say I have to put up with you tonight. Tomorrow we fight and I kill you. So Sieglinde drugs her husband, gives him a Mickey Finn in his evening drink. And he goes off and falls dead asleep. And these two realize they're crazy about each other, and they have an hour of some of the most beautiful love music ever written. And she is nervous and a little skittish because she's afraid, maybe the husband will wake up. Whatever. It is hard for her to relax into this situation. And then suddenly, a big noise, whoosh, and she's nervous. And just like the lady in the wasteland, she essentially says, what is that noise? And Siegmund says in a very calming way, with one of the most beautiful arias that has ever been written in Western music, in opera, sings the Wintersturm aria. He says, oh, all that is the wind coming through the door, bringing spring. I urge you to go listen to it. The tune is La mamma ti, mamma ti, da ti, da ti, ya ti da tom bom, ti da tom bom, ti. That's how it starts, and it goes on. Never long enough for me, but that wind under the door. In Wagner's moment comes back in here with that gorgeous moment juxtaposed to this neurotic moment. What's that noise? The wind under the door. What is that noise? And then Shakespeare comes in. Nothing, 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 nothing. Do you remember nothing? We have the great art of the past, especially love connected, juxtaposed to sex in the wasteland, love in the wasteland. It is that juxtaposition which for me is so overwhelming. It's not just Eliot's lines. It's the way they stand next to the greatness of culture that used to be Dante, Shakespeare, Chaucer, Wagner. And what we're left with here, fractured, fragmented rhythms, like broken pieces of stained glass, like a heap of broken images. Do you know? Do you nothing? Do you see nothing? Do you remember nothing? And he responds, I remember those are pearls that were his eyes. Shakespeare is back. That's a repetition of the line we had from Madame Sosostris. Are you alive or not? Is there nothing in your head? Well, what's in his head? But, oh, that Shakespearean rag, it's so elegant, so intelligent. What the heck's happened here? Well, it's like the break off to the drunks with the out-of-tune pianola again. And what's Eliot talking about? Oh, that Shakespearean rag. Well, it helps to know. It's not necessary that one of the hit songs in the 1920s, I forget the exact year, that was popular in Eliot's time was a really cranky song called That Shakespearean Rag. It's ragtime music, and it's got all sorts of silly rhymes and silly lines taken from Shakespeare. It's so elegant, so intelligent, that old Shakespearean rag. And it breaks in here into their tense conversation. This is, again, now we have a juxtaposition of Shakespeare with Shakespeare, Shakespeare with the Shakespearean rag. That's what Shakespeare's come to in the wasteland. So once again, a juxtaposition of the great that was and the horror that it's turned into. The words are just so stupid. It's so lame is the best word for it. And it breaks in the middle. What's in your head? What shall I do now? She says, what shall I do? I shall rush out as I am and walk the street with my hair down. So what shall we do tomorrow? What shall we ever do? Another 4 lines for her. I'll walk the street with my hair down. Women didn't do that. They put their hair up, but they put a hat on. Hair down. Have we encountered sexy hair recently? The hair under the brush that glowed into words after its fiery points. What shall I do now? What shall I do? Oh, instead of talk like that, I shall rush out as I am. And what? She's finally decided to do something. Walk the street with my hair down. What shall we do tomorrow? Once I've done that, what next? What should we ever do? Out of her mind, with trying to find any kind of meaningful activity in life, any kind of meaning in life. And her all too quiet boyfriend says, or husband, the hot water at 10. We'll have some tea at 10 o'clock. That's what we'll do. And if it rains, a closed car at 4. We'll take a ride out just for the pleasure of a ride. If it's raining, we'll close the car. And we shall play a game of chess. Oh dear. This is an answer to what we might do tomorrow. But if we think back to the game of chess for which this movement is named, it brings with it all the horrors of sex gone bad in the wasteland. We shall play a game of chess. And this is the most painful line in the whole poem. Pressing lidless eyes and waiting for a knock upon the door. Pressing lidless eyes. If you're pressing lidless eyes, they don't have any lids. You're pressing eyes and waiting for a knock upon the door. I've found a number of lines in Eliot that are goodbye or hello lines that all have the same rhythm. Beady, 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 beam, waiting for a knock upon the door. And I wonder if he's got that music in his mind from, once again, Shakespeare. Hamlet. Hamlet is being told by his two buddies about their experience of having encountered the ghost of Hamlet's father on the ramparts of the castle. And when they get to the end of it, they say that a cock crowed and then a horn blew. And I don't know about the horn, sorry, cock crowed. And the ghost faded away because the cock said, "Here comes morning," and the ghost can only be there at night. And the line is, "And faded on the crowing of the cock, and faded on the crowing of the cock, and waiting for a knock upon the door." And in 4 quartets later on, Eliot's going to talk about the end of an air raid from the Nazis over London. And when it was over, he met a ghost on the top of a building. He was an air raid warden, fire warden, patrolling the tops of building after raids. He met a ghost, which is a compound of all these people I've been talking about. And there was a horn that signaled the all clear. And when it blew, the ghost disappears. And the line there is, "And faded on the blowing of the horn, and faded on the blowing of the horn, and faded on the crowing of the cock, and waiting for a knock upon the door." Well, that's the second. I think we will start the third next time. It gives us a scene in a pub. And it gives us this lady talking to her friend. Usually her friend gets to answer. And in the background, you've got the bartender, the barkeep, the pubkeeper, who speaks in capital letters. "Hurry up, please, it's time." And that may make more sense of it. See you next time. Bye now.